Hey, friends. Uh, Hopefully, you guys can hear me. You guys and gals can hear me. So, today I thought I would bring a live session because I have a little PowerPoint, and it might be better done in a live session that even people can watch, not live. So, we've talked a lot, and there's been a lot of updates on our YouTube channel about the Sullivans. Obviously, that's really important to a lot of people. Um, and but I said, well, why not try and change it up a little bit and talk about something different, but similar. So, uh, what I'm going to attempt to do is do a live PowerPoint, which I have not done on my own yet. And this is regarding the tin cans of tin cans of Destroyer Squadron 52 or Desron 52. The Hi everyone. I see we're getting some people. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, I do have the comment thing going. Uh, so I'm just gonna. Hey Ed, how are you? Thanks for being here. So yeah, I don't have the screen in front of me, but it's called the Tin Cans of Destroyer Squadron 52, which is hi Greg, hi Frank, and I'll talk about also known as Desron. All destroyer squadrons can be called Desron for short. You know how the Navy and the military do that. Uh, but it's made up of two destroyer divisions, DesDivs. All right. We'll be focusing on 103, DesDiv 103 today, and then I hope to do another one, DesDiv 104. So those two destroyer divisions made up the Squadron 52. All right, so I hope this works. Again, I'm going to start sharing the other screen with the PowerPoint on it, and you guys might not be able to see me. I don't know because I can't jigger back and forth, but okay. I don't want to remove it, so okay. Let's see. All right. Well, I hope you can still hear me. I cannot see myself. And so again, now those comments are going to go away for a little bit while I'm doing, because I wanted the full screen for the PowerPoint. So the tin cans of Destroyer Squadron 52. So when I first started here, I didn't know much about the Navy, and some of you are under the impression I still don't know a lot about the Navy, which is okay. But I'm learning. I try to learn every day, and I've been here for almost 5 years now. When I first started, I looked up on the aft stack of the Sullivans, and I was talking to John Branning, our prior superintendent of ships. And I said, "Oh, what is that? Lucky Sevens or whatever?" You know, that's just kind of where my brain went. Lucky Sevens, and he says, "No, that's Destroyer Squadron 52." One of the interesting things is in Alan Raven's book, The Fletcher Class Destroyers, part of their warship design histories. It was published in 1986 by the Naval Institute Press. They have a funnel section right at the very end where they highlight about 7 or 8 funnels, and this is in the book. I know you probably can't read it, but it does say name unknown aft funnel. I can't even read it. April of 1945. Where are my glasses? But I think it says April of 1945. So we decided to put that on there at some point in our history here when the ship was here. There is some evidence that there was an emblem painted on the aft stack, especially when you look at those late August 1945 photographs. As we'll see, that all of DesDiv 103 was back in America at the time of the Japanese surrender, getting refit. So we have pictures from August, September of 45 that might show that you could just barely see that there's something on the aft funnel. Anyway, don't want to belabor that point, but it is highlighted in Alan Raven's book. Let's see. Good. You all hear me. All right, good. All right, I'm going to go back. I'll switch back now. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, good. All right, for Desron 52, they were a total of 9 destroyers over the 2 destroyer divisions. As I mentioned, DesDiv 103 is what we'll be focusing on. It was the USS Miller, DD 535, USS Owen, DD 536, which was also the flagship of Desron 52. The Sullivans, 537, the Stephen Potter, 538, and the Tingey, 539. All right, and then they were made up of DesDiv 104, which you can see the consecutive numbers, but not total consecutive from DesDiv 103, which is the Hickox 673, the Hunt 674, the Hancock 675, and the USS Marshall 676. I'll back away a little bit here. Let's see. All right, so in our collections here, we do have the war diary of the USS Miller. And so that kind of prompted me to do that. It's the photocopy's not original, but it's really nice you can get the records at the National Archives usually. And I'm trying to condense a lot of information into this PowerPoint. But yeah, so I have it labeled as USS Miller, Short History and War Diary, the 1st of February 44 through the 1st of June 45. And so you can read those, and then if you go to the National Archives, you can read those as well. Play from current slide. All right, here we go. All right. So all ships of DesDiv 103 were constructed at the Bethlehem Shipyard in San Francisco. All were commissioned between August and November of 43. That's at Pier 70. Stephen and I did visit that. We do have film of us being there. I'll show a Google map image of it on the next slide. And we weren't able to get really close. They have a lot of it cordoned off. There's some construction going on. So we got as close as we could. All ships of DesDiv 104 were constructed at the Federal Shipbuilding in Kearney, New Jersey, and they're all commissioned between September and October of 1943. All right, so you can see there's a lot of moving parts with the shipbuilding. There was 175 Fletchers constructed over about a 30-month period. And yeah, they would assign one shipyard as you have these hull numbers, you have these hull numbers. So they are constructed simultaneously, but they might be many numbers apart for their hull numbers. So here are the shipyards today. You'll see on the left-hand side of the screen is the Bethlehem Shipyard. So you can see you could certainly see where the piers and the docks were. So we were probably, if you look, you see the pier coming out, and then you see that line coming down, either that pier. We were probably right where those two intersect, and a little bit down from there. So meaning to the left land side. So that was really where we were able to get. We weren't able to walk through those buildings, unfortunately. On the right is the Federal Shipbuilding. You see the little slip there. And if we expand that map out, you see the land on the right, you expand that out, it comes to a point, and then now you're right near New York City. So that's what they look like today. one thing I wanted to do was to clarify the task forces. One of the first things that I did when I started here was I read through the Sullivan's War Diaries, and of course, it was really confusing. I would be seeing Task Force 38 and then Task Force 58, and I was like, well, what does that mean? And, I was still so new to the situation. But let's clarify these task forces, which then are broken into task groups, 58.2, 58.3, et cetera, and 38.2, 38.3. So when they had a structure with Admiral Spruance and Rear Admiral Mark Misher, and when those two gentlemen were in command of the task force, the Fast Carrier Task Force, it was named Task Force 58. They rotated the leadership in and out, and that was a policy of the U.S. Navy in World War II. So when they shifted landside, they would take a desk job and working with command and Nimitz to give them a break. And it turned into Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet with Vice Admiral John McCain in task force command of the actual task force. So those were interchangeable depending on the command structure at the time. What's amazing for me is I have written down there for R&R, combat burnout, and to confuse Japanese intelligence. What I find so interesting is Rear Admiral Misher and Vice Admiral McCain both died at 61 and 60, respectively. So you could see the strain, and especially for John McCain, he passed away 4 days after the signing of the surrender. He just plopped in his chair at home for the first time and passed away, and they both had heart attacks. So you can see the strain. Whereas with, as you got higher up, you were removed from that combat directly, and I'm sure the strain was still great, but it's just interesting that they both passed away so young. So that's kind of the clarification there for you guys. When it's Spruance and Misher, it's Task Force 58. When it's Halsey and McCain, it's Task Force 38. So I'm going to give a very brief, you could go on for hours and hours of, reading through the war diaries, but the namesake for the Miller 535 was Master's Mate James Miller. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for actions during the Civil War aboard the USS Marblehead. All right, he was still working the cannons, taking soundings while the battle was raging, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor. So you can see that when Miller arrived, they were assigned very briefly to Task Force 51, and then, I have February 43. It's not, it's February 44. Assigned to Task Force 58, which she operated for the rest of the war, with certainly the others of DesDiv 103. She participated in the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, where her and the Owen, the flagship of Desron 52, sank a Japanese destroyer. And certainly they participated, all of them, in Iwo Jima and Okinawa. She received 9 battle stars and a Navy unit commendation in World War II. The Navy unit commendation, as you can see, was for protecting the carrier USS Franklin when they were steaming back to Ulithi. During the Korean conflict, she was part of Task Force 95 and 77. And interesting in her history a little bit, for one day she was renamed the James Miller to free up the term, the namesake Miller, to be used on a Knox-class ocean escort. She was sold for scrap in 1975. For USS Owen, 536, named for Lieutenant Commander Elias Owen, who commanded the gunboat Louisville and a division of Admiral David Porter's Mississippi Squadron during the American Civil War. She was immediately attached to 58, Task Force 58. Again, very similar with everyone. She protected the USS Bunker Hill while the Sullivans took men off there, about 166 men, and transported them to the hospital ship Bountiful. Right, so she was also there next to Bunker Hill, protecting the carrier, and also escorted the Franklin back to Ulithi. She received 9 battle stars for World War II and 2 for the Korean conflict. Again, same with the Miller. It's signed to Task Force 95 and 77 during the Korean conflict. Rest of her service, she alternated between the Atlantic and Pacific fleets and sold for scrap in 73. USS The Sullivans. I go a lot into other videos on YouTube. I go a lot into her war diaries and things like that. So I didn't want to summarize, but I'm summarizing her kind of her scoreboard, so to speak. Certainly, the namesake is the 5 brothers from Waterloo, assigned to Task Force 58, and was there with the rest of the division. In total, she rescued 12 American pilots. Rescued about 287 sailors off of burning or sinking ships, captured 31 POWs because they had sank with the USS Miller. They had sank a landing tank craft, and they captured those 31 POWs and transported them to oddly enough, to the USS Indianapolis. She also assisted in the sinking of the heavy cruiser Chokai. 8.5 confirmed kills in the air, 8 probables on airstrips and airfields, won 9 battle stars for World War II, 2 for Korean service, and not scrapped, as we know. The Stephen Potter, 538, was attending Yale College and trained as a naval aviator. Interestingly, again, here in Buffalo, New York, at the Volunteer Aerial, what did I just say? Anyway, here in Buffalo, at the Volunteer Aerial Coastal Patrol number 2. So I might not be getting this right, but it seems as though the Volunteer Aerial Coast Patrol number 1 and number 2 were both students from Yale University or Yale College at the time. And he trained here in Buffalo, which I found really cool. Unfortunately, he was shot down and killed while engaging German pilots during World War I. All major actions, and again, assaults similar to Miller, Owen, Sullivans, did receive a battle star for action in the sinking of Japanese sub I-174 in late April of 44. In addition, the Sullivans rescued 166 men. Off of the Bunker Hill, they rescued 107. So they were awarded 10 battle stars and 1 for Korea. You'll see that most of the, so far in the division, have received 2 battle stars for Korea. She received 1 because she arrived later in the Korean conflict. In 73, she was sold for scrap. All right, and I'll get into the 10th battle star, because most of them received 9 battle stars. 3 out of the 5 received 9 battle stars, and the Tingey and the Stephen Potter are disparate from that. So I'll explain that a little later. And the USS Tingey, 539. He was born in London and he went on to serve the Continental Navy. He commanded the Ganges, a man-of-war ship, during the conflicts with the French, and was the first commandant of the Washington Naval Yard. And he was the one that gave the order to burn it during the War of 1812. All right, and also let it be known, I like to say this, that the village of Buffalo was burned. In addition to Washington being burned, the other city that to burn was the village of Buffalo, which had about 500 residents in it. And that was because we burnt down one of their towns, which is now Niagara-on-the-Lake, just across the Niagara River, where old Fort Niagara and Fort George are, right at the mouth of Ontario. We crossed into Canada and burned their small village, so they crossed into America and burned Buffalo. Anyway, She diverged from the other ships of Desron 52 and specifically DesDiv 103, and she joined Battleship Division 7 and the screening of Tumu Point and Sadawan Atoll. Right, so she diverged a little bit very early on when she arrived from Pearl Harbor. She then joined the Task Force 58 with the rest of the squadron in early June of 44. So she's missing the Marshall Islands battle star. So she earned 8 battle stars for action and 5 battle stars for Korea. So she spent more time in Korea as part than the other ships of DesDiv 103, and she was there from 51 to 53, certainly coming back to refit and things, but she was going multiple times to the Korean conflict. And she was sunk as a target in 1966. So I'll go over the battle stars a little bit right now. Maybe bring it back here. So for the 3 of the 5, they each received 9. Those were the Marshall Islands, the Asiatic Pacific raids, the Hollandia operation, the Marianas operation, the Western Caroline Islands operation, Leyte operations, Luzon operations, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. The USS Stephen Potter receives 10 because they sank that submarine, and so they received an extra battle star to make it. They were awarded an extra battle star, and then as you saw, the Tingey, if you look at their battle star listing, they were missing the Marshall Island battle star because they were with, as I mentioned here, Battleship Division 7. So we've got 9, 9, 9, 10, and 8. And then 2, 2, 2, 1, 5 for Korean service. So one of the things I was thinking of, would it be cool to kind of talk about post-war configurations? So I'll just kind of run through some of the changes that each of the vessels went through post-45. Certainly all of them got new and updated jamming and electronic countermeasures array. What I find interesting is that the placement of that array, the jamming array and the ECM or electronic countermeasures array. If it seems as though what I'm kind of was reading and looking at post-war photographs was that if the ship was configured with the 3-inch 50 on the aft superstructure, that led to the need for the Mark 56 gun computer and gun director, I should say, gun director, and that facilitated the removal of the Mount 53. And if that was the case, that ECM array was attached to the aft funnel. But if they kept their 40 millimeter Bofor and Mount 53 5-inch gun, the ECM and jamming arrays were on a pole on the aft superstructure right above Mount 53. So for the USS Miller, of course, the ECM, I have that in all of them. Mount 53 was removed. They did add the 3-inch 50s aft on the aft superstructure and one on each side midship. The Hedgehog system for the anti-submarine warfare. They did keep one quintuple torpedo tube. All right, that's for the ones that did keep the quintuples, they were all the Mark 15, which were between the aft funnel and the aft superstructure. The Mark 14 was in between the two funnels, and the only difference there was the blast shield, that structure on top of the tubes. And she was fitted with a tripod mast. For the USS Owen, the ECM array, she did keep Mount 53. She kept her 40 millimeters aft and midship, and the Mark 15 quintuple torpedo tube. Certainly, again, with the Hedgehogs, the anti-submarine warfare, and fitted with the tripod mast. For the Stephen Potter, jamming equipment again, kept Mount 53. And that's a very good, if you look there, that is a very good representation of the pole with the jamming equipment on the aft superstructure. So if you can see that pole coming out right where Mount 53 is, if you can see that just aft of the two funnels, that's where it went if they kept their Bofors or Mount 53. They didn't have the need to build that Mark 56 gun director. And so that's where it was kept. Again, if those things happened, then it would go on the aft. The jamming arrays would go on the aft funnel. They did have 3-inch 50s midship, Hedgehogs, but they kept her original mast as well. So they did not build in the tripod mast. And again, the quintuple Mark 15 torpedo tubes. For the Tingey, again, the array, she kept her Mount 53. She kept Mark 15 quintuple torpedo tubes. She did get equipped like the Potter, like we just saw with the Potter. The 3-inch 50s were midship. And I do not believe that they were on the aft superstructure. They may have kept their Bofors there. Hedgehogs, and kept the original mast. For the Sullivans, we're looking at the ECM array, Mount 53 removed, 3-inch 50s and the aft superstructure and midship. Both quintuple tubes were removed. All right, so that seems to be a difference with the other 4 ships in the division. That both the Mark 14 and Mark 15 were removed, and they added those Mark 32 triple torpedo tubes that were able at the time to fire the Mark 44, 46, and 50 torpedoes. All right, so that may have been her only Fram. They touched, I think there were 3 Fletchers that really had a full Fram conversion, fleet rehab program. The Sullivans just got touched with Fram a little bit with these Mark 32 triple torpedo tubes. Certainly Hedgehogs, we still have them today, and fitted with the tripod mast. I think that may be it. All right. So let's see. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hi, Lisa. Howdy do. I won't say your name, but thank you. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little look. I haven't done DesDiv 104 yet, the ships that were constructed in the federal shipbuilding, but I do plan on doing that. And hopefully this is a little difference other than just giving you updates on the Sullivans and things like that. So again, this is live now, but it will be uploaded if there's so you can watch it again if you chose to, if you missed something, or feel free to leave comments in the YouTube section down below, as you guys do. I seem to answer almost every one of them. But thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and hope you learned a little bit as well. All right, take care, and we'll see you again soon.